Does England losing yesterday make our job more difficult next weekend?
1,000,000%. They were on a massive run of, 12 games unbeaten. And I thought they got a bit giddy yesterday. They got a bit carried away and probably overplayed and didn't stick to the paint by numbers type of rugby that they play. And I think they're just going to double down on that. They're going to look at Ireland's scrum. They have a very good scrum. They're going to look at Ireland's maul defence. We obviously can see the try from that. They have a very good line-out maul defence, and they've got a lot of power. So it's a huge task for us. I still think England are a good side. Yeah,
you think they'll double down on it though, Fiona, that they'll just say, look, we are a good team, that's actually just a bad performance?
Yeah, they'll revert back to what they've been doing, that kick chase, use their physicality. I think they'll go after the scrum again, like they've certainly, Italy identified something there. France didn't go after the scrum, but I think that was a purpose decision not to go after it with those two second rows, which I said earlier, not big scrummage in second rows, but I think England will definitely go after it.
OK, let's drill into a little bit of detail as we circle back on Ireland then and their performance again from yesterday. We talked earlier in the programme, Bernard, about the things that Andy Farrell will be happy with, and one of the question marks was around he replaced his two wingers, and this week maybe he'll feel he got a bit of change out of these new players that he brought back in.
Yeah, he got a load of change, and it was actually quite funny because James Lowe was someone who was a big part of the team. He was dropped, he came back in, was really good, and obviously Rob Balacloon, he's 28 years of age, but Farrell has wanted to bring him in for a while. So we won the aerial balls earlier on. This is brilliant from James Lowe. That was a big weakness in Paris, and probably the main reason Stockdale and Tommy O'Brien got dropped. But it's just how dangerous both are. So Balacloon here, his ability to get out of trouble, get you back on the front foot. He's so explosive, and again here he's linking with Lowe because of his pace here. He takes the man off the ground, and then Lowe has the inside and outside. He takes on the outside. Watch Lowe here, offload. Like, that's something we miss in our game. We need people like him. And watch here, the collision line is there, but it's metres after contact. He actually gets 5 metres after contact by the time the ball is presented. So again, we don't have players who see the space in behind. We saw how effective France were with the chip again today. He's able to gather it. So, Robert Balacloon, his nickname is the Cat. He's the most, because he's so relaxed, he'd sleep anywhere. And that's a great way to be when you can switch it on and play. And he said, Farrell spoke to him and said, just go out there and impact the game. I didn't show his try. I didn't show James Lowe's break at the end. They had a massive influence. So I think the wing conundrum for the moment is done. And having James Lowe back in form, based on purely a reaction, because he didn't play any matches for Leinster in the meantime, he just got himself back to where he needs to be. And he is so important to us because of his profile is different than everything else we have. So I think that's a big boost to selection for this week. I think they'll be playing again.
There's a couple of bits in that. One is the boost that it must give in a squad, Fiona, when you talk about culture, when you've got somebody like James Lowe, who was in every team sheet before that, gets dropped, comes back and has a performance like that. It's probably the exact message that Andy Farrell actually wanted.
Yeah, not just him. I think he replaced the number subs that came on, or changes that he made actually answered up and fronted up well, and I think they'll keep their place as well. Jack Conan, similarly in the back row, he came off the bench last week, made a difference, and then was rewarded with that. So it definitely gives the squad a boost. They know that no one's position is safe, that if you're not performing, he is going to drop you, and that's what he wants, is that impact that you're going to come back and be a better player.
Aerial game was definitely better from yesterday, from an Irish point of view as well. We saw Kyle Steyn totally taking away the English aerial game as well, Jamie, and maybe they might look to make that a bit of a battlefield next weekend.
Yeah, and our wingers, to Bertie's point, our wingers were better, and it's the way the game is going, right? The defences are so good that, it's the only way to kind of maybe break it up and get into this kind of unstructured type defensive setup. And our wingers are good in the air. And I think it's something that we're going to lean into. I think, Jack's kicking was probably better than Sam's. And I think that's, for me, coming into this game, the next game, is that's the biggest thing. Jameson had a massive impact on the game. I think the 9 debate is over. We have one good 9, and we have to think about maybe who we come through. But I think the signal it would send to the squad if he starts Jack, and then you have to figure out what you do with Sam with the bench and the 6-2 split and all this sort of stuff in coverage. But I think what that says to the squad in terms of picking Jack there and the connection him and Jameson had and the way the game flowed in that last kind of 20-30 minutes when Jack was on is the biggest headache that he has to solve for. But I think the decision is probably made. I think it's Jack.
You think it's Jack?
Yeah, and this is look, they've given Sam effectively 12 months in the seat. And he's a very talented player. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's fair to say he's not in form right now. there's a huge amount of pressure on this guy at 22 years old. He's a young guy. There's a lot of commentary around him, and I hope most of it isn't getting through to him, because some of it's not particularly nice. And you have to think about getting confidence back into him, and maybe just taking him out of that pressure kind of scenario for a game or 2 games or 3 games, because you can't, when you're in camp, the coaches don't have a lot of time with him. They can't do a whole lot with him in camp as such. But what they can do is maybe try and get some confidence back into him, and maybe that is him just, putting him on the bench, or maybe, pretending on that 6-2 split. There's a lot of implications, but you could see a world where he's not even on the bench.
What do you think, Bernard?
Yeah, I would agree. I think we have to get out of the mindset of being out of the team is fatal or being dropped. So Ty Byrne obviously lost his place on the bench. James Lowe was out of the squad completely, gets back in. Mathieu Jalibert is a great example. Man of the match there. Last week he was outstanding as well. He got capped for France when he was 19. In 2024, he left camp. He had a row because he felt he was better than Ramos, right? And I went back, and he went back to Montpellier. He only has the same amount of caps, I think, because very close. He's got over 34 caps. I think Jack has 32 caps. Yeah. They're only learning, you know what I mean? And whether it's, I think Jack should start, and it doesn't mean it's the end of Sam. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's the end of, if they take Dan Sheehan out and put Ronan Kelleher in. It's not about that. It's about being ready for Test rugby and becoming better. So we become so focused on that 10 spot, and it probably hasn't helped any of the 10s get into form, but certainly his impact off the bench yesterday. Jack looked ready, energetic, physical, and I think he now has a bit of momentum to start this week. How
do you build confidence, though, in a player if you're taking him out, if that is the case? So it's a double-sided sword, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the feedback you give them. So if you need to get better physically, if you need better tackle technique, if you need better your goal kicking, that's for the 10s. If it's a scrummager, if it's Jeremy Lock, Michael Milne, he was dropped last week, having done well off the bench in Paris. He would have been given things that he needs to improve on. That's pro sport, you know. And it's not like they're being sent off. They will go back to the provinces at the end of the Six Nations, and there's big games to come. So you can transfer that from the training pitch to the game time. So yeah, we see it as being a complete negative, and it's not. No one wants to be dropped, but as part of your career, very few, Jamie, Bernard Driscoll, weren't dropped. Most others come in and out, and depending on form, they get lots of game time or get it limited.
The difficulty is, though, Fiona, if Andy Farrell goes with a 6-2 split, which people expect he will, then, as Jamie has outlined, that could become problematic for Sam, and maybe we're looking at a Harry Byrne on the bench if he does go for Jack Crowley.
It just depends. It does come back to that 6-2 split, and I think they will need that against England. I think they will need to look at it around the scrum and who they start in the second row, and in the front row as well. With regards to versatility, I think we're strong that we've no full-backs really. Like Jamie Osborne's there, he's doing a really good job, that we can't move him and put Jack at full-back, but Jack can play full-back if we need him to be. So if you have Sam on the bench or you have Harry on the bench, you still have that same problem. If you're starting Jack, you still have that same problem. Harry's played a bit of 12, but that they're out half, so you still have the same problem. But I agree with Bernard's point in terms of Sam needs to get his confidence back, and if that has to happen at provincial level, well then, so be it. And we have to move on. Harry's had a really good season and he needs to be rewarded as well.
Isn't it funny, though, in November, Andy Farrell spoke so much about Harry Byrne that I think we all expected we actually would have seen him. And now suddenly he's in the squad and he's not playing. So it's just funny in the space of 6 months how things can change rapidly. I just wonder when we are at 6 months in the summer, are we still going to be having this debate, Jamie? Because there's a World Cup on the horizon and none of us are still the wiser about who's going to be playing in that 10 shirt.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, the pressure that's on that coaching ticket now in terms of that window getting shorter in terms of experimenting with yourselves, because kind of come November series, you kind of want your core team kind of nailed on, I think, because that's your 12 months out in terms of the run-in, and the window is shorter. But Harry's done really well. You also have Kieran Crowley there who can cover a couple of different positions, give you optionality, and I think that's where versatile players are really winning now in today's modern game, being able to play these multiple positions. I don't know if they're looking at any of the back rows who maybe can slot in somewhere as well and fill a hole. But I'm sure people like Harry are banging on the door and asking why not me? And every player should do that, if I'm honest, and try and get that feedback that Bertie turns on, how to get better, how to put their name forward. But I think for this week, what's going to happen, I think Jack goes in, and then they have to figure out who they put on the bench.
Yeah, just in terms of scheduling, obviously, it's not ideal to have England third,
Yeah.
and then there's a break after it. But having said that, also, it helped us against Italy because we had 2 extra days recovery from Italy and we made 6 changes. But yeah, there will be some probably attritional changes that we don't know about yet. We get a briefing tomorrow. So, like Gary Ringrose had a bad knee injury. It looked like 10 minutes to go he played on, but there may be 2 or 3 changes that Farrell has to make because of injury and fatigue. And then, do you want to go to Twickenham with too many changes either? You don't, when it just looks like you're getting a bit of cohesion. So it's a tricky one. I do think there'll be a change at 10, but what other changes happen? I think they'll probably be led by injury and fatigue.
Yeah, but that's the big question, though, Fiona, around those other selections, because it doesn't really matter who's playing at 10 if they're not actually winning that front foot ball, which was actually a huge problem yesterday.
Yeah, like set piece first and foremost, and then that physicality and the accuracy in what they were doing. And, whether they go with Tom O'Toole, we said, starting a loose head, that's a big change for him to go to England and start there. I thought Michael Milne was very good off the bench in the first game, and then he doesn't feature in the second game. Is he going to be brought into consideration as well? And then, as I said, that second row, do you keep Joe McCarthy there for that weight in the scrum because they looked under pressure there when he went off? Does a Dogbo get an opportunity? I don't think the start, but get an opportunity to stay on that bench to come on and add that weight in the pack?
Who'd be a coach? That is the question, isn't it?